Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dig into something kind of fascinating. Today, we're going deep on gold, trying to figure out if it really is the safe haven everyone says it is, especially in our crazy economy.
It's a question for the ages, isn't it?
It really is. We've got some great analysis from Margin World to help us out, so let's see what they have to say.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so to get started, we got to define what a safe haven even means, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Margin World uses this really cool analogy. They talk about a financial lifeboat for when, the stock market gets rough. What do you think about that?
I think that's a perfect way to think about it. Like when things get shaky, investors want something that'll hold steady, something that won't lose value when everything else is going down.
Exactly. And historically, gold has been that lifeboat, hasn't it?
Many times, yeah.
They actually bring up some pretty convincing examples, like in 2008, during that big financial crisis. Remember,
Oh, how could we forget?
the S&P 500, it totally tanked, lost almost 40%.
Ouch.
But gold actually went up about 5%.
That's wild. In that moment, it definitely lived up to the hype.
It really did. And it wasn't just a fluke, right? Remember what happened during the COVID pandemic?
Oh, yeah.
Markets went haywire in 2020, but gold, it shot up to over $2,000 an ounce. There's a clear pattern here.
Absolutely. That's hard to ignore.
But Margin World, they don't sugarcoat things either. They point out that gold isn't always this predictable safe bet. Take the 1980s, for example. Gold peaked in 1980, and
And then, boom, it went down.
right, and investors who bought at the top, they ended up losing a lot.
It's definitely not a smooth ride all the time. Makes you think.
Exactly. And, gold is still part of the market, so when the economy starts looking up and other investments seem more appealing, gold can lose its luster.
Yep, that makes sense.
Which reminds us, no investment is a sure thing.
Not even gold.
Nope. There's another thing to think about, too. Opportunity cost.
Oh, right.
Stocks give you dividends, bonds have interest, but gold just sits there, right?
Yeah, so even if its value goes up, are you missing out on better gains somewhere else? It's like choosing between a savings account that grows slowly or investing in a business with huge potential.
Exactly. Tough choice, right?
For sure.
All right, now let's talk about inflation. Everyone always ties gold to inflation, right?
It's like they're best buddies.
Margin World explains that traditionally, when inflation starts eating away at our money's value, gold starts looking pretty good.
Well, yeah, think about the 1970s crazy inflation. People wanted something that wouldn't lose its value, and gold was a natural choice. It's real, you can hold it, it's not just numbers on a screen, and it's been valuable forever.
Right. But here's where it gets a little more complicated. Margin World points out that things aren't always so straightforward anymore. Today, central banks, they're pretty good at managing inflation.
That's true.
And even when inflation does happen, gold doesn't always react the way we expect.
So the old rules don't always apply anymore.
Exactly. Past trends can be helpful,
Yeah.
but they don't tell us the future,
Yeah.
right? And things like central bank policies can totally throw things off.
They can definitely have a huge impact.
So the big question becomes, where does gold fit in today's investment world?
Right. If it's not always this perfect safe haven, what do we do with it?
Well, Margin World, they suggest we shift our thinking a bit. Instead of seeing it as the main event, they say to think of it more like a supporting character.
A diversification tool.
Exactly. They use this great example. Imagine you have a $100,000 portfolio. Right?
Okay, I'm following.
You put 60% into stocks, 30% into bonds, and then just 10% into gold.
I see where you're going with this.
The idea is gold often moves in the opposite direction of stocks and bonds. So when your stocks are down, gold might be up. Kind of softens the blow.
Like a buffer. I like it.
Yeah, it's all about balance, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
But is this just a U.S. thing, or does this apply globally?
It applies everywhere, but the context matters.
Oh, for sure.
In stable economies, like here in the US, gold might not seem as crucial. But in places with shaky currencies or lots of political turmoil, it's a whole different story.
Margin World, they talked about some really tough situations like Venezuela or Zimbabwe, where hyperinflation just wiped out their currencies.
Yeah. In those cases, gold isn't about getting rich, it's about survival, holding on to what little wealth you have left.
It's a stark contrast.
It really shows how gold's role can change depending on where you are and what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's about growth, sometimes it's about just staying afloat.
Now let's jump into the 21st century. Digital gold and gold ETFs. Have you heard about
Oh,
these?
yeah. They're getting really popular.
It's like gold, but without the hassle of actually storing it, right?
Mm,
It's so convenient.
definitely. No storage costs, buying and selling is a breeze, and they fit perfectly into a modern portfolio. It's gold, but modernized. And there's always a but.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the catch?
Well, with gold ETFs, you don't technically own the actual gold. It's more like you own a piece of paper that represents gold.
Interesting.
Usually that's not a big deal, but when things get really crazy in the financial world, some people like knowing they have actual physical gold in their hands. It's like having something real when everything else feels uncertain.
I can see that. A bit of security. And March and World does talk about the realities of owning physical gold, too.
Oh, yeah. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Right. If you go the old school route, you got to figure out where to keep those gold bars and coins. A safe at home, a safety deposit box.
Lots of decisions.
And they each have their own costs and risks.
For sure.
And then there's selling. Not always easy, especially if you have a lot of gold. Finding the right buyers, negotiating prices, making sure everything's secure.
It's definitely not as easy as clicking a button online.
Definitely not. And that brings us to the big question. How much gold should someone actually own?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. Or maybe the gold bar question. Is there some magic number?
That's what we all want to know. But Margin World says there's no simple answer. It depends on your personal goals, how much risk you're comfortable with, and, what the market's doing.
Makes sense. Everyone's situation is different.
Right. And they present different expert opinions, too. Some say 5% to 10% of your portfolio is a good hedge, while others say, why not diversify with other assets instead? No clear consensus, it seems.
And that's a good reminder that financial advice is rarely black and white. It's all about understanding the why behind the advice, not just blindly following it.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's switch gears a bit. Margin World touches on something really interesting, the emotional side of gold. There's something about it that goes beyond just the numbers, don't you think?
Oh, totally. There's a certain feeling you get when you hold a gold coin or bar. It's tangible, it's timeless, it feels real.
And for a lot of people, it brings a sense of security that you can't really measure, right?
Exactly, like a psychological anchor.
It's like holding a piece of history. This thing has been valuable for centuries.
Mhm.
And in a world that feels so uncertain, that can be incredibly comforting.
That's a great way to put it. It's like holding on to a piece of certainty. We've covered a lot of ground already. We've talked about what makes a safe haven, looked at how gold has performed in the past, and even got into the nitty-gritty of actually owning gold. But we're just getting started. Welcome back, everyone.
So we were talking about that almost emotional connection people have with gold, right? It's fascinating.
It really is. It's like Margin World said, for some people owning gold, it's not really about making a ton of money.
It's more about that feeling of security, right?
Yeah, like peace of mind knowing you have something solid, something real.
It's really interesting how an asset, something like gold, can have such a strong psychological effect.
It makes sense, though, when you think about it. Humans crave stability, especially when the world feels so unpredictable. And gold, with its long history, it kind of taps into that. I totally get that. It's like when everything else is chaos, gold represents something constant, something you can rely on.
A grounding force.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that psychological factor, it's huge when we're talking about gold in an investment portfolio. You can't really measure that with numbers, but it definitely influences how people make decisions.
Big time. Okay, so after all this, has Margin World given us a clear answer? Is gold still a safe haven? Or is that just a myth?
Well, like with most things in finance, it's not a simple yes or no.
Figures.
Margin World's take is that whether gold is a true safe haven really comes down to how you define safe and what you want to get out of your investments.
Like it's personal then.
Very much so. They highlight that gold can be a really valuable tool to diversify your investments and protect yourself from certain risks, but it's not a magic bullet.
No guarantees.
Exactly. It's important to remember that gold, it has its downsides. It doesn't generate income like stocks or bonds, for example, and the price, it can be pretty volatile.
Up and down, up and down.
Exactly. So if your main goal is an investment that gives you steady income or grows super fast, gold's probably not the best fit.
But if you're looking for something to, balance out your portfolio or protect yourself from inflation.
Or maybe even just to have a physical asset you can hold on to with a proven track record, then gold could definitely be a smart move.
It's all about understanding those nuances.
Yeah. Weighing those potential benefits against the risks and figuring out what aligns with your own goals.
Margin World makes it clear. There are no guarantees when it comes to investing, and gold is no exception. It's all about knowing what you're getting into and making choices that work for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. They actually leave us with a really thought-provoking question. They ask, given all we've learned about gold, how do you see its value in the world today? Do you see it as a financial tool, a way to feel more secure, or maybe something else entirely?
It's a great question to think about for sure. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I really want to encourage everyone listening. Keep learning about this stuff, keep researching, and figure out how gold fits into your financial picture.
Because the financial world, it's always changing, right? And gold's role is constantly evolving. The key is to stay curious, stay informed, and stay in control of your own financial future.
Couldn't agree more. One thing Margin World really emphasized towards the end was the importance of personal reflection. Taking that time to consider your values, your goals, before making any decisions.
It's so true, but it's something people often forget in the excitement of investing, don't you think? They don't always stop and ask themselves, what am I really trying to achieve with my money?
Especially with something like gold, which has all that history and emotion attached to it, right? It's easy to get caught up in the hype, to see those prices going up and just want to jump in.
Yeah. But Margin World reminds us, the best investments are the ones that really fit your own personal situation, your own long-term vision.
Exactly. And that's where their final message really hit home for me. They said, cut through the noise and ask yourself, what does gold actually represent to me? Is it security, protection from uncertainty, a chance to grow my wealth, or maybe it's a bit of everything?
It's about going beyond just the money, understanding what gold means to you on a deeper level. After all, investing, it's not just about numbers. It's about building a financial future that reflects who you are and what you want.
It's a journey, isn't it?
It really is. And no expert or analysis can tell you exactly what to do. It's about discovering what works for you, making sure your financial choices align with your own beliefs and goals. Margin World gave us the knowledge and the tools, but ultimately the decision is ours.
So, to come full circle, is gold a safe haven?
Well, the answer is complex, just like gold itself. It depends on what safety means to you, what you're aiming for with your investments, your risk tolerance, and even your emotional connection to this ancient, fascinating asset.
It really is amazing how much, like, emotion we attach to money. Especially when we're talking about something like gold. It's like, it has this weight to it, not just literally, but...
But symbolically, yeah.
Exactly.
Margin World really drives that point home, encouraging everyone to take a step back and think.
Yeah.
Weigh the good and the bad, consider gold's whole history, how it fits into the world today, and then decide what feels right for them. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
I really appreciate that because so much financial advice out there feels like, do this, do that. But Margin World is like, hey, it's your money, your choice. Just make sure you know what you're doing.
Exactly. It's about giving people the power to make their own financial decisions. The world of finance is massive, and gold's going to be a part of it no matter what.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of gold, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that the whole, is gold a safe haven? Question. There's no easy answer. It's complicated. There are so many factors to consider, from what safety even means to you, to your investment goals, your risk tolerance, and yeah, even how you feel about gold itself.
Couldn't agree more. It's been awesome exploring this with you.
Same here. Hopefully everyone listening learned a thing or two, maybe even see gold in a new light.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge.